This video is going to be my first film study preview of Super Bowl 60, the Seahawks matchup against the New England Patriots. I'm going to utilize this video to show, first of all, a lot of film. I didn't do that in the initial preview that I put out Thursday afternoon. This is going to talk about and try to explain the structure of the Patriots defense as I understand it, some personnel overview about the players that they utilize, particularly in the front six or front seven, which I think is a pretty good group up there, to be honest with you. And I'll utilize a ton of film to explain it, mostly Patriots film from the playoffs, but will include 3 or 4 plays from the Seahawks offense in 2025 to try to compare how that matchup could occur from a 12 personnel standpoint. That's basically what we're going to focus on, 12 personnel /21 against the Patriots base 3-4, 4-3 multiple defensive looks. In addition, the latter 10 to 15 minutes of the video, I will have a lot of data that kind of supports some of my assertions here about how effective New England's defense has been, in particular in their playoff run through the AFC. We're going to get this started first and talk about the structure of the Patriots defense. I'll utilize 2 plays from the AFC Championship game. I think it's actually back-to-back snaps, to be honest with you. So we're going to talk about mainly, or focus mainly on 21 and 12 personnel. Now, it would be great if NFL broadcast announcers, or just even on a portion of the screen, would give you some data as the offense lined up. So, like, for example, right now, Denver, you could say that they are in jumbo 12 personnel, and that the Patriots are matching with their base defense, which is normally a 3-4 structure. Sometimes it ends up being a hybrid 4-3. There's no reason why the NFL couldn't advertise that information right there in some section of the screen to make you feel like, you know, a more prepared or updated fan. But in any case, this one's jumbo 12 personnel. So the Broncos have 2 tight ends on the field, one of which happens to be an additional or 6th offensive lineman. Let's talk about the structure, what they normally have. Keep in mind, at this point in the game, 4th possession, Robert Spillane, their starting Mike linebacker, was injured for a little bit, so he's off the field. Typically, he would be the Mike. And why I'm calling him the Mike is this guy, number 48, I'm referring to him as their Sam linebacker. Again, it's either 21 or 12 personnel group. So this is base defensive structure here, which you could look for possibly as a fan, trying to figure out, okay, where is this guy lined up? Because I think it's important. Generally, when he's lined up into the boundary, so the ball is on the right hash for the offense. This is the boundary side of the field here, the short side, and that's the field. Now, the NFL, some would say that's not as big of a deal as it is in college because you're only talking about 18 feet 6 inches between the hashes. It's not nearly as wide of a swath of the field in the middle, that is, as it is in college or obviously high school. This is one of their favorite stunts that they utilize against the run, and it's going to kind of be a jump-off point for me that I would like to see Seattle run a ton of outside zone or stretch. The Patriots appear to rely on this as a way to stop duo, downhill run concepts, and inside zone, to be honest with you. I'd like to see Seattle and Kubiak kind of rely on outside zone into the boundary in particular, regardless of where 48 is lined up. But the stunt I'm talking about is 94 getting upfield, and then 33, the edge defender. I'm calling him in their defensive structure the rush or the jack, with 48 being the Sam. But the rush or the jack 33 is going to go underneath here. It looks like Denver's prepared for it, but they just create a whole lot of disruption by stunting these OLBs underneath. Now, you say, well, it'd be pretty easy for the Seahawks to run outside zone if that guy's going to do that. I suspect that sometimes this is a read where he is reacting to the step of the tackle, and he would not do this if the tackle stepped to him and the guard stepped to the defensive tackle. So I think there's some safeguards in place for the Patriots when they do this so that they don't give up an easy edge to a running back on an off tackle or outside zone path. Hopefully I explain that in a way that makes sense. It's a stunt you see repeatedly in their film. From a structural standpoint, I consider them to be a 3-4 team, whereby 48 is the Sam linebacker, and he can shift or alter the structure of their defensive look depending on where he lines up. So we'll use I believe this is the very next snap after that short gain. Once again, it's on the 4th possession. This time they've gone 21 personnel. So I think up top here, you've got a receiver for Denver who's going to go in motion, and then 1 tight end and 1 fullback, hence the 21 personnel designation, even though you only have 1 running back in the backfield. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. The Broncos, to me, like many teams lately, the Texans as well, they seem to really like this twins look. And at this point, I'm going to veer off for a moment and talk about the structure of the Patriots defense and why I think they line up these players in a three-point stance and the rush or the jack, in this case 33 to the boundary, in a stand-up position. Whereas on the previous play that I showed you, or the previous snap, number 48 was lined up to the boundary, and he was on the line of scrimmage as a 9-technique edge defender, if you will. Now he's lined up as essentially a 4-3 inside linebacker. How that relates to the rest of the defense. So the Sam, 48, and the rush or the jack, whatever they actually are called in their structure, I do not know, are never going to be on the same side. So against a base personnel look, 21 or 12 or even 22, those guys are going to be on the field together, or an edge defender. It could be number 2, Harold Landry up here. It could be a bigger defensive lineman, depending on the situation. Since 48 is set to the field, he's going to widen up with this motion. And what that does is it takes their base 3-4 structure and really turns it into a 4-3. Now, the screen's going to flip here in a moment for a lot of reasons. I'm going to show you the end zone angle of what I'm talking about, and we're going to explain who these 3 guys are on the inside from a personnel standpoint, but also the reason why the Patriots do this. So, again, Spillane is off the field. Spillane would normally be here. He's injured at this point in the game. He'll be playing in the Super Bowl. 48's a hybrid Sam. If he was lined up to the boundary, he'd be a 9-technique over here. 33 would be flipped. And the reason why that's important is because what they typically do is have 3 down linemen on the field, and they take the 1-technique, shade, A-gap defender, nose tackle, however you want to refer to him, and they set him up to the side of number 48. In a similar fashion, they take the 3-technique, the B-gap defender, defensive tackle, and they put him on the same side as the jack. It's a simple defensive structure that a lot of people utilize. I think they're a sub-package defense in a lot of ways, because against 11 personnel, or even some versions of 12, 48 will be off the field altogether. That's a topic for another video. I will include one play here a little bit to show you, to kind of explain what I mean. But these are 3 defensive linemen. Hands in the ground, 3-point stance. Christian Barmore, really talented guy, I think from Virginia Tech originally. Those are 3 players that are going to have their hand in the ground in their base defense. There's the rush end. He's a dedicated edge defender, outside linebacker, pass rush type guy, whereas 48 is a hybrid inside linebacker, outside linebacker, and occasionally, at least against this formation, he'll really widen up with the twins, the second wide receiver who's going to go in motion. Hopefully I explained all that in a way that makes sense. It's kind of silly at this point because Spillane is not on the field, but he's going to be the guy who generally lines up to the same side as the Sam linebacker, number 48. The play doesn't necessarily matter here for me, whether it succeeds or not. You do have a corner blitz. This is very similar to one of the blitzes that the Rams use against the Seahawks in the AFC Championship game. The safeties are going to rotate over, and then this corner is going to rotate back. If you recall, I'm talking about or referring to the play after Derek Young recovered the fumble in the third quarter when Seattle was forced to punt. Remember, the very next snap, JSM was lined up into the boundary, and the Rams brought a corner blitz in the case of Forbes, and Bobo won his one-on-one to the field pretty easily on like a fake out route, and then turning it into a post and crossing the safety's face. Why I do think that you should pay attention to this, if you are one that tries to look at things pre-snap during the game, I'm talking about during the broadcast. If you see 48 on the field, number 1, that means you've either got 2 tight ends or that means you've got 2 running backs, generally. That's a simplistic way to look at it, number 1. Number 2, if you see him set to the field, right, the ball is on the right hash here for the offense. If he's set to the field, you're almost always going to get zone to the field side because they do not want him matching up against a wide receiver in a man-to-man situation. Obviously, he's a linebacker, edge defender hybrid. He's a good player. I think he's from Hawaii. Originally played like 5-6 years in the league. One thing I have noticed so far is that, generally when he lines up to the boundary, you're almost always going to get zone unless they're blitzing him, unless they're bringing him, unless they're using him to try to get pressure. It's something that I think it's one of the reasons why the Broncos and the Texans utilized 2 receivers to the field and a tight end, 2 tight ends, or a tight end and a fullback into the boundary so much, is that they felt like they had a reliable look where they could give Jared Stidham, or in the case of the Texans, C.J. Stroud, pretty much be assured that they were going to get zoned with 48 set to the field and matching that motion by the receiver. All right, this play, it'll be the last one that I'll show of the Patriots defense for a moment, and then we'll kind of veer off into Seahawks offense, what they do out of 12 personnel and how they could possibly exploit some of the things that New England does. First of all, this is a slightly different look. You've got 2 edge defenders on the field for the Patriots. It's 12 personnel for Houston. This is going to be the pick 6 by Marcus Jones on the 4th or the 5th possession. Actually, it's the 5th possession. My apologies. But New England has taken one of their inside linebackers off the field, and they've only got Robert Spillane. So we could call it a 5-1 if you want. 2 edge defenders, 33 and 44. Actually, that's Harold Landry, number 2. My apologies. So 2 and 44. 1 inside linebacker, and then 3 down linemen. Those same 3 down linemen that are referred to in their base 3-4 structure. So we could call it a 5-1 with those 5 guys there and then Robert Spillane. But really what they do with it is they walk 2 of this 3 safeties up and they make it look like a 5-3. This is a very commonly used formation for Seattle. I think you will see this situation in the Super Bowl probably early. And what I mean is 12 personnel, whether it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 8, whatever. And Sam Darnold is going to be prepared by Kubiak to recognize the look. Did we get their base 3-4 structure with number 48 on the field, or are we getting this 5-1? In my opinion, I would like to see them run outside zone into the boundary. The moment they get this look, that could also involve one of the tight ends motioning and then tossing the football to Kenneth Walker to try to get to the outside. I would like to see Seattle make these guys move horizontally a little bit more than running downhill. I feel like Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, and those guys do a pretty good job on downhill concepts, and the inside linebackers do as well. Robert Spillane, really underrated guy, if you ask me. It's a play-action boot concept. So both 44, 33, and Landry, number 2, are going to play this more like a rush end. And what I mean is generally when they get play-action boot, they're going to veer off to the quarterback pretty quickly. So check out 44 stepping down because that's where his key is going. We're talking about 44 key in this tight end. And since the tight end is stepping down, and then he'll kind of reverse out of there, 44 is also stepping down. Then he'll veer off to go attack C.J. Stroud. And that's part of the reason why this ends up being a pick 6, because 44 gets there so quickly. First of all, I think Sam Darnold does a better job than C.J. Stroud does on these boot concepts, but this is what New England wants. They want to take the edge defender, if it's 44 or 33 or Landry, and they want to attack the quarterback as soon as those guys recognize play-action boot. The difference for if 48 is on the field, and he's not here, but if 48 is, 48 would be a little bit more balanced and kind of slow play this half man and then go to the quarterback late. In addition there, you're talking about a differential in athleticism and burst and explosiveness, meaning 44, 33, and Landry are guys who generally do attack the quarterback, rush the passer far more often than 48 does. And in my opinion, if you get 48 on the field, what I'd like to see Seattle do is run the ball either at him or away from him, but run the bootleg back to him. I don't feel like 48 is going to be there as quickly as some of those other edge defenders will. So with all that said, what I want to do is show 3 plays from a formation, a personnel group in a formation that I think is one of Clint Kubiak's favorite to use, especially early in games, but also has really been their most devastating from a run standpoint, but also using the play-action pass. So let's go back to week 2. It's a 12 personnel group. Technically, there's a tight end on the field. It's 21. But you're going to see either the base defensive structure for the Patriots here, or possibly that 5-1 look. It could depend on down and distance. If you get the 5-1 look, it'll be different structure necessarily than these guys, because what they'll have is one Mike backer, Robert Spillane, and then 2 of their 3 safeties walked up to create that 5-3 that I just talked about on the pick 6 by Marcus Jones. So this is a run concept, and if you do get a run away from 48, I think this is the type of reaction that you're going to get. And I'm talking about right here, even though this is T.J. Watt, and drastically different caliber of player between 48 and T.J. Watt, if you could get some type of read for him to step down on could get him to hesitate in case you are getting the quarterback out into the edge, now out in space, on a play action boot. Now, that's not what's occurring here. This is a run concept where the right tackle, Lucas, goes up to get the backside inside linebacker, and it's kind of designed to allow Kenneth Walker to wind this back, if you will. I would love to see stuff that threatens the Patriots defense horizontally in one direction and then gives Kenneth Walker the option or the instruction, if it's a called wind back, to bring this run concept back in the other direction. 12 personnel ace is a formation, a personnel group in formation. I did a couple of videos on earlier in the season. I found it early on, probably after week 4 or 5, to be one of the most dangerous and effective groups that they had. This is a little bit of an anomalous play here as far as who gets the football. It's Dareke Young, underutilized guy compared to so many others. This is week 3, that crazy game against the Bucs, who came in and really put it on Seattle's defense. It's a 12 personnel group, so you actually have 2 tight ends on the field. Somewhat similar to the look that you might get from the Patriots at times, whether they're in their 5-1 personnel and they walk up 2 safeties, or they utilize 48, bring him on the field, and then walk up a strong safety into the box to create a 5-3. This is definitely one of Kubiak and Sam Darnold's preferred concepts. It's a play-action boot to his left, and they're trying to make it look like toss double. So the topside tight end is going to go in motion. And essentially what you're talking about is this tight end stepping to the edge defender first, engaging him, and the second tight end who goes in motion having that late double effect, and that really gives the running back an option to read that block and either cut underneath of it or bounce things to the outside. So what they're doing is they're trying to make this look like toss double, and then Dareke Young is running the post corner. Sam Darnold gets enough space here to go up top, because this edge defender runs down the line of scrimmage briefly before veering off to Sam Darnold. It leaves just enough room for Sam Darnold to get this throw off. You probably got a hold here on the inside linebacker, Levante David, Hall of Famer, against Cooper Kupp trying to cross his face. But here's the route by Dareke Young, post corner. He's been fantastic, Sam Darnold, throwing these concepts, moving to his left as a right-handed quarterback. This one he's throwing with the edge defender, I think it's Yaya Diaby, converging down in front of his face, lofting it up. I'll never forget, someone on Twitter said, when you're hot, you're hot. And you're throwing this thing, A, to a guy that doesn't get a lot of targets, and B, moving to your left with an edge defender in your face. He's able to get to completion. If you're a Patriots fan watching this long, first of all, thank you. But second of all, these are the types of plays that Sam Darnold's been executing throughout 2025, moving to his left, throwing the football to receivers, who are moving right to left from an offense standpoint, and putting the ball right on the money, at least as far as this play goes, to someone who doesn't get a whole lot of attempts, doesn't get a whole lot of targets, I should say, at the NFL level. A really variable, or I should say perhaps diverse play-action boot game. It's not always, trying to go up top and hit home runs. In this case, down in the red zone, of course, against a defense that doesn't stand up to New England's at all. This is the New Orleans Saints, but it's inside the red zone. And the idea here is it's 12 personnel, 1 tight end to the right, 1 tight end to the left. The difference is the motion is going to the right, and that's where the boot by Darnold goes as well. Think on the previous concept, Darnold booted off of the motion. So you got multiple play concepts here. In this case, the running back making it look like he's getting the football to the left. The horizontal conflict is created by Darnold booting, obviously, in the opposite direction. It's down in the red zone. They cover up the deep routes pretty well here. JSN kind of sits down by the K in Seahawks. Cooper Kupp is running underneath of it. You got another tight end out into the flats. That's the front side or the backside tight end who went in motion. And then the hidden target, or the fourth option for Sam Darnold, is the front side tight end who steps down to block. So leaving the edge defender to the boundary unblocked, and he'll actually drop out. So somewhat anomalous. The Patriots don't do a ton of this. That's the guy that covers up the backside tight end who went in motion. There's the front side tight end, really, the fourth option. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe not in that order. I'm not saying that's the order that Darnold is reading it. The idea here is, behind me showing you this, is that Sam Darnold Clint Kubiak and those guys have a ton of options in their 12 personnel play action boot game. It may be New England's approach that anything for an edge defender that looks like this, those guys are going to veer off to quarterback to try to take it away altogether. And what that could do, in my opinion, is just open up some of the wind back run concepts, even more so since the backside edge defender will be out of there. We may see New England match with their 5-1 against 12 personnel early, with the idea that those safeties can walk up and kind of be that cutback or wind back defender. Darnold is really calm in these moments, in my opinion. He had some turnover issues throughout 2025, don't get me wrong, but here in the playoffs, he's been rock solid. The last one that I'll show you, and once again, it's against the Saints, and it's in the second half. The game is obviously over at this point. It's 38-6. I really like this concept. It happens to be 21 personnel one more time. I believe this is the tight end, and this is a fullback, but it's a 12 personnel formation. Ace under center is what I call it. So whether the Patriots have their base defense on the field or not, they're either going to be in a 5-1 look, as I call it, maybe morphing it into a 5-3 by walking two safeties up, or a 3-4 structure if number 48 is on the field. So here's the design off of it. It's a Cooper Kupp sitting down with, I think that's JSN up to the top side, essentially running a vertical. There is a play action concept, and the tight end is designed to basically pull a defender with him. So we're talking about this tight end's movement here. If the Patriots had walked up a safety, it's possible that guy would have eyes on and maybe get frozen. This may be a play call, a concept that the Seahawks don't go to. The reason why I'm showing it is because all year long, out of 12 personnel when they go play action, they've been able to give Sam Darnold this type of pocket. Max protection, you may call it. That's fine. Cooper Kupp kind of sitting this thing down in between the top of the numbers and the hash, and Sam Darnold getting rid of the ball quickly ends up being a big gain to him. There's a lot of guys that they've utilized out of 12 personnel. I think it's their smoothest, most well-practiced, and executed concepts come from this formation, what I refer to as ace under center, whether it's 12 or 21 personnel. We'll keep this going as far as looking at the base structure of the Patriots and how they line up in a differential manner. And it all really relies on where 48 is set up. So I'm calling 48 the Sam linebacker, but oftentimes people will call that the Will who's set to the field. It's just a preference of terminology, if you ask me. But you can see the 3 down tackles or defensive linemen with Christian Barmore, number 90, set up as the 5 technique on the same side as number 48. This is from the AFC divisional round. With 48 set to the field, once again, you're going to see motion by a wide receiver out of a 12 personnel group, an actual 12 personnel group, meaning there's not a 6 tight end, so it's not considered jumbo. And 48 is going to widen up as the receiver motions to the field to create that twin set. Very similar to what you saw the Broncos do the week before. Here's the 3 down defensive linemen. Oh, but just by the way, as a Seahawks fan, you may remember the utilization of this in 2024. This was Robertson Harris for the Seahawks. So that was his position in this kind of 3 down defensive linemen. The only difference is when Mike McDonald and those guys did that in 2024, generally they had the 5 technique set up to the field. I'm comparing this alignment, a 5 technique outside shade of the tackle versus a 3 technique defensive tackle outside shade of the guard. Generally, when Seattle did that, they had the 5 technique set up into the boundary. But in any case, it's a double slant. Why is Houston calling this? I think because they've confirmed for C.J. Stroud, okay, 48 set to the field. We know it's going to be some iteration of zone. You can see the safety and corner lined up, with considerable depth. Double slant concept. Stroud hits the outside slant pretty quickly. Maybe it's a low throw. Maybe he's trying to protect him, the outside receiver from contact. But in any case, they get the quick conversion. This, to me, looks like an opportunity. One of the things that I can understand and point out or try to relay to you is when 48's on the field, if he's set up to the field, you're generally going to get zone to that side. Maybe they switch it up. Maybe 48 comes on a blitz. I think I've got it 14 times in the games that I saw, and 12 of those 14 times it looked like zone to me. Some of them ended up being pass plays. This is normally what you're going to get when you get the base defensive structure. Spillane being the Mike linebacker with 48, off screen over here. I'm calling him the Sam. And then 51 on rundowns. It's a sub package defense between 51 and 53. 53 is Christian Ellis, I believe, who was a UDFA. Actually went to the same high school as Christian McCaffrey. But in any case, what I would like to see Seattle do is 12 personnel. If you're getting this look with the rush to the boundary, jack, whatever you want to call him, meaning he's set up to the 2 tight end side, the 3 technique into the boundary, and a 1 or a shade to the backside set up to the field. I'd like to see the running back behind the quarterback, whether it's under center or the pistol, and run outside zone over here. I feel like it could give you angles to deal with people. With those type of combos, you could do whatever you want back here with this 5 technique. Kind of scoop him on the backside or gut block, or move this guy up the backside tackle to the Mike linebacker, and really try to create that opportunity for the running back to start off here and then bring this back underneath. It makes me wonder what this guy's going to do on play action boot. So with the running back running an outside zone path away from him and the quarterback booting in that direction, is he going to react like the rush or the jack, 33, 44, and Harold Landry, or is he going to more so slow play it like I believe 48 will? I could be wrong there. That's just what I've seen on film. That's the one play concept I would like to see Seattle go to early. 12 personnel, outside zone, run concept into the boundary, in particular if that's where they put the rush or the jack edge defender. The point here in some of this analysis isn't necessarily the play. It's just me trying to give you an opportunity to see things maybe before the snap, possibly enjoy the game a little bit more. It is my opinion that the NFL should be doing this. The NFL should be giving you information, or the broadcast partners should be giving you information like 12 personnel, maybe not formation because everyone has different names for formations. That's fine. They could give you 12 personnel 2x2, or at the point where the receivers lined up here, on screen somewhere, it could say 12 personnel 3x1, because there's your 3 receivers, and then off screen to our left, or the Texans' offense's right, is only 1 receiver. But once he motions across here, now it changes to 12 personnel 2x2. There's no reason why they couldn't give you that information. In addition, give you the information on screen somewhere in a small graphic that the Patriots are in their base defensive structure from a personnel standpoint. A little bit more from their base personnel look. Again, I'll consider it a 3-4 here. It's going to be a slid 3-4 with what I would call a 31 call. So it's jumbo 12 by the Texans. The rules for alignment are, and I kind of went over them already, wherever the Sam is, 48, that's where you're going to get the 1 technique, the shade nose tackle, and the 5 technique is just a slid 50 or an under front. And then the opposite side, wherever the rush or the jack is, 33 once again, that's where you're going to get the 3 technique or the defensive tackle. That's really how they set their front. But because they've got a jumbo tight end here, a 6th offensive lineman really, and then an actual tight end here with 2 receivers, New England is going to flip the defensive tackles. So 31 and 94 are going to flip this. And you guessed it, New England's going to run their patented stunt between these 2 guys. So 48 is going to cut underneath as 90, Barrymore, kind of gets upfield. It's almost what they go to immediately early in games if they feel like they're getting downhill run concepts. It doesn't work here, to be honest with you, against the Texans. That's not really the point, and I'm not saying that it's not sound, because it's been extremely effective for New England so far this year. I'm talking about this stunt, this exchange between 90 and 48. What I would like to see is, and it's also possible that New England shelves that stunt because of how often Seattle runs outside zone. If Zach Charbonnet was here and you had Kenneth Walker, if Zach Charbonnet was healthy and you had Kenneth Walker on outside zone stuff, occasionally split zone concepts where he's downhill and then cutting underneath of the kick out block by the tight end. In addition, Kenneth Walker III is going to run toss plays. When Charbonnet's in the game, you're going to get a lot of inside zone, some outside zone / stretch, but a lot of duo, downhill stuff. So my suspicion is if Zach Charbonnet was healthy and he was on the field in what looks like a duo setup from a formation standpoint, 12 personnel, well, jumbo 12, and then it's actually jumbo 13. My apologies, I misspoke a couple of times. There's a tight end, there's a jumbo tight end. Sorry about that. If you had a duo formation from a personnel and then alignment standpoint, that you would get this stunt pretty quickly once Charbonnet got in the game. So it's possible that New England kind of shelves or avoids usage of it altogether. I want to find out. I would like to get into a formation that kind of lends itself to duo and then run some outside zone at the Sam, either 48, or at the rush / the jack, 33, 44, or even Harold Landry, who leads the team in sacks, number 2. We'll get into a little bit more anomalous looks here, and what I mean is some 6-1 stuff where they do have their base personnel on the field. I'll call this a 6-1 lightning from a formation standpoint. They're very multiple and prepared. Going to have different looks based upon the formation and the situation. They've been playing incredible football in the playoffs from a production standpoint. Yes, some of that has to do with the quality of the offensive line they faced, the health of offensive linemen / position players. J.K. Dobbins wasn't available for the Broncos in the AFC title game. A starting running back for the Chargers, I think, only played 2 snaps. But you get the same stunt here, by the rush or the jack linebacker. And I think it's because they've walked up one of the inside linebackers to his side. So the precursor, or maybe a way to predict this, is number 1, you've got the 1 technique, again, attached to the Sam on the same side as the Sam. The 3 technique attached to the rush or the jack. And for you as a fan, if you see this, the inside linebacker walk up and he ends up actually being outside of the rush or the jack, you got a pretty good idea that this might be the stunt you're getting. Again, same idea. Defensive tackle, upfield, edge defender, underneath. Oh, by the way, 94 is stunting out. They got a lot going on. It's really a 6-1 look, in my opinion. Spillane ends up being very disruptive. They're playing the game with the defensive tackles, and it looks like Houston, to me, is pretty prepared for it because 51 stepped up here as a potential pass rusher, and so the way that Houston ends up blocking this is the center works back with the left guard and the left tackle. So, I'm quite sure that Seattle will be prepared for this stunt and the things that they can use to predict it possibly occurring pre-snap. Sometimes when I create these previews and I find something that's information I could give you to help you perhaps enjoy the game a little bit more and try to predict things, basically, I have seen a ton of downhill inside zone duo type concepts against this Patriots defense. I haven't seen a whole lot of outside zone / stretch really since week 16 against the Ravens and week 15 against the Bills 1 week before. Another 6-1 look. This was, of course, in the first quarter. This is after they beat Christian Gonzalez on a 3rd and 10 up top. After this play, I'm going to present a significant amount of data about the Patriots defense. In addition, the Seahawks, and I'll utilize a metric, or a data metric, I should say, that myself and some other people created in the offseason that's not referenced by many other people other than myself, but it's a way that you can look at defensive efficiency and really appreciate what Seattle did over the course of the 17 regular season games and now the playoffs, but also what New England's been able to produce in winning 3 games to emerge from the AFC. This is, of course, the touchdown to Courtland Sutton. It's another 6-1 look. Again, you've got the rush and one of the inside linebackers on the same side, with Robert Spillane being the solo inside linebacker look. Again, this is the very next snap after a first down, or after a 3rd and 10 conversion, where they beat Christian Gonzalez deep. There's, safety who maybe should have helped. That's fine. I understand that. My point in showing you this one is you've got the play action concept here to the side of the jack or the rush, and then the Sam linebacker, 48. Notice how he kind of slow plays this a little bit more, and he's certainly less explosive, less of a burst to getting there than 33 or 44 or Harold Landry. Of course, I get to pick and choose the plays, right? So, cherry pick, call it whatever you want. I will say this. Occasionally, the guys playing safety have not done a really good job, if you ask me, in run situations of staying with their primary responsibility, which is the pass. Christian Gonzalez is in the flats. If you ask me, this safety is not taking over the route by Sutton at all, whereas this safety on the other side takes over the same pretty much inside release or inside path, I should say, by 17 pretty quickly. It allows Sutton to get wide open. The quarterback, Stidham, has a whole lot of room to throw the football. the concept works great because the coverage breaks down. 21 does a poor job, if you ask me. But it's also because 48 is there a little bit slower than I believe some of the other more dedicated or singularly focused edge defenders like 33, 44, and 2 will be. The idea for me, as I've said a couple of times before, is that I would want to run at 48 or run away from him with the boot coming back to him. I'm not sure that I would want the boot coming back to the side where they've got the rush or the jack 33 and the inside linebacker walked up. It'll be Sam Darnold's job to, if they get a play call, to pick and choose the correct side. There's your 3 down linemen from their base defensive structure, all 3 with their hand in the ground. 48's the Sam, 33 is the rush or the jack. Spillane is the Mike linebacker, the solo, if you will. They're trying to hold him by pulling the guard on this counter step from the running back, and then having the quarterback boot opposite of it. So they're trying to clear up space here. It's also possible that, this safety is looking at that guard pulling, and that's why he steps in this direction. You can see 21 actually has his eyes here. Cortland Sutton is off screen to our left. You can see him now. But 21's eyes just betray him a moment. I'm wondering if Seattle and Clint Kubiak have looked at this play, among others, and said, we want to run the boot to our right. And that's, along with that, if 48 is set up to our right. On screen for us right now, as fans or people trying to analyze the game, it's obviously to our left. I'm talking about, the Seahawks right. In addition, the quality of the offensive line that is being faced, I think, is the best pass pro offensive line that the Patriots have encountered in the playoffs. The Broncos being, someone that a group that's obviously comparable. But to talk about the Texans or the Chargers offensive line in comparison to what Seattle has been able to do over the course of the season, it's really a difference like night and day. I do have 3 more plays that I want to go over and kind of give you guys some of my thoughts on and how it might project for the game. But before doing so, I want to talk about the efficiency of what Seattle's defense was able to do over the course of the season, and then use that as a way to compare and give respect to what New England's been able to accomplish during the AFC playoffs. So this is what's called a TOR metric, something that myself and at least one member of the Lions Discord were able to create in the offseason. It's basically a 0 to 100 rating system for an offense or a defense. In this case, it's the Patriots regular season offensive output on the left, an average of 61.5, which is not bad. It's actually, superior to Seattle's from this metric standpoint. And then on the right-hand side, 47.3 would be their defensive TOR allowed. Essentially, anything above 64, 65 for a one-game TOR score from 0 to 100 gives you about a 70% chance to win the football game. Assuming that your defense is able to hold someone to 50 or below. Generally, if you're at 64, 65 or above, you've got a really high percentage chance to win the football game. So if your defense is holding someone to 47 or below from on a weekly basis, you've got a great opportunity to win pretty much every game. And this metric is compiled from 10 different categories. They're kind of displayed down here at the bottom. Yards per play, turnovers, pass completions, rush yards per carry, sacks, third down percentage allowed, etc. For your offense, it's third down percentage completed. For your defense, it's third down percentage allowed. And the idea here for me is that the Patriots over the course of the regular season played a pretty good brand of football. You can see later in the year against the Bills in Week 15 and the Ravens in Week 16, they gave up a 75 score and an 85 score. When your defense allows, somewhere in that range, 75 plus, you're looking at about a 20% chance, 18% chance to win the football game if your defense allows that type of score. Seattle Seahawks fans would hope that their offense is able to, compile or produce a TOR score or TOR metric score for one game in the Super Bowl of 75 or above, because it gives you a great shot to win the football game. So all of this is compiled from 10 separate categories and then added up together. And through the course of, and we actually have data for this dating back to 2000, 2001, which is really cool. I just haven't been able to go through every season's data and do win-loss percentage based upon tour. It's really essentially the way that we talk about it is based off of information from 2023, 2024, and 2025. But you get a pretty good idea of what the Patriots were able to do defensively during the 2025 regular season by having a 47.3 tour score allowed. If you take all the one game production metrics and then average them out, basically divide them by 17. To compare that to Seattle's, however, Seattle, you can see, is far superior, 32.3 in the top right corner for you guys from a defensive tour allowed versus 54.5 for the offense. That's really pulled down by the turnovers per game, number one, and rush yards per carry. Rush yards per carry for Seattle for the year is quite poor, 4.13. It's the bottom left metric for you guys. For the 12 categories that you see, centered in the middle of the screen. And then turnovers per game is next to last in the league at 31. Both of those things have been minimized here lately. The run game's been spectacular, other than the NFC Championship game against the Los Angeles Rams. Actually, it's, the second time that the Rams have been able to limit or hold down Seattle's run game. So for Seattle to look at the tour scores allowed, it's the far right column for you guys. Look at the best output against Seattle for this year. 63 for the Rams. You also had a 42 for the Rams, I think, in Week 11. And then the Bucs in Seattle, of course, put up an 86. Other than that, everything is 53 or below. Seattle's defense has been extremely consistent from a week-by-week standpoint, and in fact had numerous single-digit outcomes. You can see 2 5s back-to-back against the Vikings and the Falcons. That's ridiculous win percentage for you if you hold a team to single digits. The reason why I'm bringing that up, a single-digit output, is because that's what the Patriots' average has been in the playoffs. So for someone like me who tries to analyze the game as best I can with limited time on my hands and also obviously limited resources, it catches my attention when you see something like this. This is the Patriots' tour on offense, horrible, 17.7, partially due to, the number of turnovers that Drake May and others have committed, but also the weather and the quality of defenses they were facing, neither three of which, in my opinion, stands up to Seattle's. Conversely, New England's defense, their average tour allowed for the AFC playoffs was a 7.3. That would be first in the league by a long shot. Seattle was first this season for defensive tour allowed at 32.3, and then I think Houston was second at 35.4, 35.6. The point here in me showing you this data is I have film that shows me playing at a high level on defense. We also have regular stats, rush yards, pass yards allowed, etc., but also metrics like this that are not designed to judge total offensive output or even total points scored. It's designed to measure offensive efficiency. Okay, got 3 more plays here to talk about, and then some thoughts at the end, as well as give you guys a heads up on the next thing that I'd like to focus on from a Patriots defense standpoint, but also the Patriots offense and how it matches up against Seattle's amazing defense. So this is a 21 personnel group, so you're going to get 48 on the field one more time. He's generally going to be on the field when you either have 2 tight ends on the field, 12 personnel, or two running backs. Once again, Denver's going to motion a receiver set up to the field. There's the jack or the rush, 33, set into the boundary. So inside leverage is usually where 48 is playing, and a lot of teams do this besides the Texans and the Broncos. Actually had the Bills doing this a number of times in their Week 15 game win, 35-31. So you're getting twins to the field, corner, safety from a high alignment, meaning they've got depth. Switch to the end zone angle for a moment so you can see what I'm talking about. 48's off screen to our right with the motioning wide receiver. There's the jack or the rush, number 33. Your 3 down linemen, the 3 technique set to the side of the jack or the rush, the 1 technique set to the side of the Sam, and that's number 90, Christian Barmore, who I think is one of the keys to the game. Super talented, defensive tackle, defensive end hybrid that's going to be in a 5 technique. So what that generally means is the offensive tackles are going to have to deal with him if it's pass pro. play action with the inside linebackers, really getting out of there. I feel like from watching enough film, this is one of the things where offenses or offensive coordinators have a pretty good idea of what they're going to get from a zone standpoint, because so often the pass plays occur with the quarterback turning their back but having supreme confidence in what they're going to see once they turn around. In this case, Stidham doesn't like what he sees. I think it's up here to the top side. Remember, that's where you have 2 wide receivers, ends up flipping it down to the back, a little bit lazy and slow. These guys converge really well. I do not feel like this is a team that's going to major, being the Patriots, I do not feel like they're going to major in man against this version of the Seahawks with JSN and his efficiency, competitiveness, and versatility, as well as ability to make plays down the field, and the big play or splash potential of a Rashid Shaheed. Change it up a little bit, still talk about 12 personnel, which is really what we're focusing on here, but mix in some 21 and jumbo 12. And this time, show you a little bit, give you an idea of how multiple the Patriots can be. They did not play well on defense in this game, Week 16 against the Ravens. Part of that was because Milton Williams didn't play, and neither did Robert Spillane. So 51 and 53 are both on the field together against this 12 personnel group. The difference is the Ravens have 2 receiving threats as the tight ends, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. A.J. Barner is incredibly talented and has been very efficient this year, but he's more of a balanced tight end, whereas both of these guys for the Ravens, their relative strengths, are receiving, and when they are asked to block, it's usually out in space. One of the videos I would love to get out at some point, maybe this weekend or even into Sunday night or Monday, is talking about Christian Gonzalez. He's one of the players that I look at and say, okay, I think he would start for the Seahawks, and that's oftentimes how coaches can try to judge or evaluate players. It's also how coaches at times, make excuses for the reason why their teams might not win. But in any case, Zay Flowers gave him issues. And he got beat by Denver last week a little bit. I think he's a guy that if they can get JSN matched up against him, I like that matchup. It doesn't mean if you're a Patriots fan, if you listen this long, first of all, thank you. But second of all, it doesn't mean that I don't think that Christian Gonzalez is a great player and worthy of all the attention that he's getting. Really liked his film coming out of college in the draft. I think he played well last year in 2024 for them. Having said that, I've seen enough situations, in this game against the Ravens and in recent weeks where he can be had over the middle. And so what I'm talking about is either, quick in cuts over the middle when it's man. This one is, a little bit deeper than that one. But what I really would like to see, if JSN is matched up against him and can get some wins over the middle, is sluggo. I'd like to see JSN with his ability to not give the route away, start to make an in cut, like a slant, and then bring the route. I've stopped it or frozen it, too far, and then bring the route back vertical, because I think JSN's long speed, Christian Gonzalez is a great athlete. It makes me wonder if JSN's going to get an opportunity to make a big play against him, or on the other side, Carlton Davis III. I will have a standalone video on those guys, Christian Gonzalez versus JSN. They actually matched up some in the 2024 game that Seattle won in New England. Same game, and this one's, somewhat anomalous from the standpoint of whether we'll see it or not, but I would expect that the opportunity is there for a reverse like this one. This is Zay Flowers. It's not against their base defense because you've got the same two tight ends on the field. So the reason why I showed you the previous play, twofold, to show you Zay Flowers matched up against Christian Gonzalez, but also the way that New England was matching the 12 personnel group. It would be very easy for Clint Kubiak to put 12 personnel groups out on the field, see how New England is matching it, and then try to come up with answers like this. It's a reverse to Flowers, a little bit slow developing, but it's very similar to that touchdown that I showed you against the Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship game, whereby the right guard is pulling and kicking. And in my opinion, it's not a coincidence. So this is two of the plays that I've shown you. So what I'm talking about is the reaction of this inside linebacker and this safety, both being related to or synced up with the pull of the right guard. I don't think those guys are necessarily seeing this counter step from Derrick Henry. I think teams have identified that those linebackers and safety on that side is reading the pulling guard. The Ravens use it to get Tyler Linderbaum, Isaiah Likely out in front. Flowers makes, a great move don't get me wrong, to get into the end zone. In addition, very athletic backside tackle for the Ravens, Ronnie Stanley, able to work all the way up to the field side safety. Again, that's the same safety that was pulled or held by the pulling right guard. Occupied, I guess would be a better word, by the pulling right guard. So that holds the inside linebacker to the field and the safety to the field, and also gives Ronnie Stanley a better opportunity to go get him because he had to hesitate for a moment in recognizing the play. Zay Flowers takes it to the house. Look, it's a great play call by the Ravens. Who knows? Kubiak may not even run a reverse at all, especially if you've got New England's base defense on the field. This was a base defense primer. To some degree, I talked about the effectiveness. Can they stop Seattle's run game? I haven't answered that question in my own mind, let alone tried to give it to you in video format. I definitely think that last play I showed you is a Rashid Shaheed play for sure. I will have a separate standalone piece of content out at some point in the next 48 to 72 hours that projects forward whether Seattle's going to be able to run the football, from an outside zone standpoint, duo, inside zone, split zone, or anything else. I really think the Patriots have a pretty cool system on defense. In some ways it's basic, but I would say it all hinges upon, A, whether 48 is on the field or not in terms of base defense versus a 5-1 look or a traditional 4-2-5 nickel defense. It's basic, don't get me wrong, but the way the Patriots utilize it is quite simple. Also allows their guys to play really fast. I think that some of the factors I didn't mention at all or didn't really show any film of is, first of all, in obvious passing situations, Barmore and Williams are excellent pass rush guys, in my opinion, on the inside. But will their outside linebackers, Landry, 33, 44, will they be able to pressure with those edge guys in an organic four-man rush concept, meaning not have to blitz? Because my impression is that this is not a team that wants to rely on man and leaving large areas of the field open against, JSN, one of the better wide receivers in the league, Rashid Shaheed and Cooper Kupp. Those guys are different receivers. Those two guys are different receivers, operate maybe in different parts of the field. From a big play standpoint, Shaheed offers more danger to the Patriots than Cooper Kupp does. The next video, like I said, is going to focus on Seattle's run game, how it can succeed, where, with some film to back it up. There's really not much outside zone against the Patriots here lately. The Ravens utilized it to great effect in Week 16. I also want to cover some of the 6-2 looks, sub-package defense looks that the Patriots occasionally use against 21 personnel or 22 personnel. I think it must be said that the Week 16 game against the Ravens, Week 15 against the Bills, did not include Milton Williams. Robert Spillane didn't play in Baltimore either, so that's important for me. The two D tackles, Barmore and Williams, I like other guys on their D-line as well, but those two stand out in terms of disruption, combined with their ability to get to the quarterback. Now, they do only have 5.5 sacks between them during the regular season. This is a team that only had 34 overall. Seattle's pass pro, meanwhile, has been fantastic, right? Darnold has only been sacked 27 times in the regular season, so as far down the totem pole as New England's pass rush is, only 34 sacks in the regular season, Seattle's pass pro has been even better. And they played in the best division in football, meaning Seattle. You got the Rams and the 49ers there. I think turnovers is obviously one of the main determining factors on both sides, but in particular for the quarterbacks. Sam Darnold's struggles or inconsistencies with turnovers in the regular season, well documented. Drake May in the playoffs, look, he's fumbled 6 times, thrown 2 interceptions, only 533 passing yards, and that's while being sacked 15 times against 77 pass attempts. Some of that is all influenced by the weather in terms of his production. It was very cold and snowed in their division round home win against the Texans, and then again in the AFC Championship game against the Broncos, where there was similar conditions. But the sacks are a consistent theme. 15 sacks in the playoffs against 77 attempts. That is way too high. That's about double as much as what you would consider acceptable. In 2025, during the regular season, Drake May, who's very athletic, was sacked 47 times, but he still put up amazing passing numbers as far as completion percentage and efficiency. I think of the two quarterbacks, Darnold and May, the guy who can avoid mistakes the most, gives his team a chance to win, but also identify the look that the defense is in. That's kind of why I tried to do this type of video, give you, the listener or viewer here, and fan, the ability to hopefully be able to see some of this before the snap as the offense lines up, as the Seahawks offense lines up during the Super Bowl. The quarterback that gets pressured the least, right, doesn't get sacked or with potential fumbles and or interceptions caused by that contact, that's a huge factor to taking one or two steps towards a win. I know that Sam Darnold will have the added responsibility of processing these looks. It is my belief that if someone like myself can look at some of these tendencies, 3 games from the playoffs, 2 games from the regular season, Ravens and Bills at this point, weeks 15 and week 16, then Clint Kubiak, Sam Darnold, and their offensive staff are going to have a great opportunity to get Seattle's offense in the right look for that situation. It'll rely upon or hinge upon Sam Darnold's ability to recognize it pre-snap and then change things if he needs to. This is going to be a fun game for me to try to continue to try to preview. You're welcome to let me know what you think of this one in the comment section, if you enjoyed it or did not. If you did not, you're probably not listening at this point. I never intended to produce an hour-long piece of content, but I even at that point recognized that this preview is incomplete. I didn't address the run concepts or the matchups between the wide receivers and the corners at all. The next one I do will focus on, the outside zone concept and whether Seattle can actually block it up consistently and effectively against the Patriots front, and then also some of the 6-2 anomalous looks that the Patriots have gone to, in particular against the Ravens early in their win in Week 16. If you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number 1. Number 2, if you think other Seahawks fans, Patriots fans, or football fans in general would enjoy this preview of Super Bowl 60, albeit one that I still consider incomplete, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.